Let's use a problem-solving strategy for word problems. So to do this, we've got, I like to think, 7 steps. Now, some of these you can kind of put together, but they're all important in their own way. So first and foremost, read the entire problem. So many times I see students start to read a problem and they try to do the work while they read. No, read the entire thing first and then start working. So after we read the problem, we're going to identify what are we trying to find. It's important. If you don't know what you're trying to find, how do you really know how to get there? Assign variables to the unknowns. What is missing? Part of that is what we're trying to find. So those kind of go together. We then want to write and solve an equation. Now, sometimes you might not need an actual equation. Sometimes it might be easier to draw a picture, work from a picture. But in any way, you want to figure out how to solve the problem and then actually do so. It is important to check your work. So often we just depend on the answer our calculator spits out, and we think that that's automatically the answer. But calculators don't always get the right answer, especially if you hit the wrong button. I know I do that a lot. After you check your work and you know it's right, then the last step is to submit your answer. So let's do a couple of examples. The first student into class brought a box of 12 cookies for the class party. The last student had a box of cookies with 4 less than 3 times the amount of cookies from the first student. How many cookies did the last student donate to the party? There's a lot here. But what I want to say is, okay, what am I trying to find? Well, I want to find the number of cookies for the last student. Let's call that L, okay? So we have this information here, 4 less than 3 times the amount of cookies from the first student. Right now, I'm going to call the first student F just for fun, okay? So 4 less than 3 times the first student gives me the amount of cookies for the last student. Here's my equation, right? With my first student and my last student and how they're related. Now we know the first student had 12. That means we know F equals 12. So in my equation, I can say 3, substitute in 12, minus 4 is going to give me the number of cookies for that last student. And we simplify. 3 times 12 is 36. 36 minus 4 is 32. So, now we're going to check our answer. So let's kind of do it this way here. If I take 3 times the amount of cookies for the first student, so that's 3 times 12, that's 36, and then 4 less than that, well, that's 32. That's how many, yep, so that makes sense, right? Thinking through it from what if I know some pieces. So the answer is 32 cookies for the last student who came into the room. Let's do one more. You have 48 feet to enclose a rectangular fence. If you want the length to be twice the width, what is the length of the rectangle? Now, I don't know about you, but I am a visual thinker. So I'm going to draw myself a rectangle. And I know the perimeter is going to be 48 because that's enclosing, right? The outside is perimeter. Now, what does it tell us? It tells us the length is twice the width. So if the width is W, then the length, we know, will have a value of 2W. And you might say, well, that doesn't really make any sense. Well, think about this. When we're writing an equation, I know that perimeter of a rectangle. If you know the formula for perimeter of a rectangle, it's 2 times the length plus 2 times the width equals the perimeter. Whoop, let me just use a P for perimeter here. Okay, well, what do we know? Well, right now, I know the perimeter is 48. I know the W is just W, but the length is the same as 2W. So instead of L, I can type in 2W. Does that help me? Well, let's see what it brings. So now I can say, okay, 2 times 2W is 4W. And I'm a big fan of just rewriting my entire formula. Now, 4W plus 2W is 6W. And if I divide both sides by 6, I find that the width of my rectangle is 8. So the width is 8. What does that make my length? Well, if I plug in 8 for W, 2 times 8 is 16. So that should give me a rectangle with a length of 16 and a width of 8. To check it, add all four sides together. 8 plus 16 is 24. 24 plus 8 is 32. 32 plus 16 is 48. So that checks out. Therefore, the length equals 16 feet. And that is my final answer.